Hello, my dear student. I hope you're well, wherever you are. I chose to record this video. This is just what we are supposed to cover in class because I'll be missing this week's class. Will not be able to meet you because of a meeting that I'm supposed to be attending. So for that reason, you'll have this video in place of our class. So I'll be discussing allowable deductions. We are in the topic employment income. And in the topic employment income, we have some deductions that we call allowable deductions. What do we mean by allowable deductions? Allowable deductions are actually expenses of an employee. These expenses incurred by an employee, actually these expenses are recovered by the employer from the salary before remitting the salary to the employee. Those expenses, a few of them are actually allowable. By saying they are allowable, what do we mean? We mean that they are permissible. In other words, they are deductible. And that means before arriving at the taxable income, you deduct these expenses. You saw that last time we were adding salary plus benefits. And then salary plus benefits would say that is the taxable income. Now we go a step further whereby we now bring in the allowable deduction. So what happens? We take salary, we add benefits, then we less these deductions. It means something like this. If your salary was 100,000, for example, and you had a deduction which is deemed to be allowable of 10,000, you'll not be taxed on 100,000, you'll be taxed on 100,000 minus 10 that is deductible, you'll be taxed on 90. So that is what happens. We have actually three deductions that we are going to talk about that are allowable, or we say they are permissible deductions, or yes, allowable deductions in taxation. So I go straight to share my screen. Let me share my screen. I'm looking for a slideshow. Yes. Just a minute. And here we go. The first allowable deduction is known as a defined benefit fund or defined contribution fund. This is contribution to a registered pension scheme. This is a contribution to a registered pension scheme or provident fund. When an employee contributes to a scheme that is registered, and by saying registered, it means registered with the commissioner for purposes of taxation, then the amount that the employee contributes is deductible. The amount that the employee contributes to the registered pension scheme is deductible. You see, us guys who are employed will make some contributions, to cater for our retirement. That means when we retire, we expect that will be paid some amount on retirement. So while we are contributing, now that we are employed, while in active employment, we contribute. That amount that we contribute is actually deductible. Mark this word, the deductible amount is the lesser of the allowable deduction, or the deductible amount is the lesser of, now look at 30% of the pensionable pay. 30% of the pensionable pay, this actually means salary plus benefits. We consider 30% of that, 30% of that. Then next, we compare this with employees' actual contribution, what you actually contribute, the employee's actual contribution. Okay, so is 30% of the pensionable pay, or there should be the word or, the employee's actual contribution, or 20,000 shillings per month. 20,000 shillings per month, we call it CBT's limit. What this simply means is the amount that is deducted cannot be allowed to exceed 20,000 shillings or 240,000 shillings per annum. So if these employees' actual contribution is in excess of 240,000 shillings per annum, we limit the amount that you are deducting to 240,000. We need to add this. If you are contributing, as some employees will be doing this, they'll be contributing to their register scheme, and they're also contributing to NSSF. This principle applies to the combined amount, what you're contributing to that scheme and what you're contributing to NSSF. Now, that's the first deduction that we talk about. Is that easy? And I demonstrate in the illustration that follows shortly. Now, there's this one that we call home ownership registered plan, registered home ownership savings plan. What is that? It is a scheme that has been there since 2007 that allows employees to make savings. And why they make savings is for the purpose of using those savings in future to buy interest in a permanent house. You allowed a deduction of 4,000 shillings per month, which is 48,000 shillings per annum, if you are contributing to these schemes that we call ROSP. So if you are contributing an amount like, let's say you are contributing 5,000 a month. 5,000 a month will translate to 60,000 shillings per annum. You will not be granted a deduction of 60,000 shillings, you'll be granted a deduction of 48 because the limit is 48. I need to mention this, that this deduction, you can see I'm cancelling it, it ended with the Tax Laws Amendment Act. The tax laws were amended in April 2020, and these are among things that were removed. So as the law stands right now, this thing of home ownership is actually relevant, but we're in a transition period whereby we might check on our knowledge about the past. So we used to have such a thing. Now, I'm ready to take you through an illustration. And here is the illustration. You have this illustration in the illustration set that I sent for this topic. And you have this guy known as Ezekiah Mugo. Mark the important facts, like the basic salary is 150,000. By now, you should be multiplying 150 by 12 because 150 is per month. Then there is issue of is housed, company house. And this house has furniture in it. There are two benefits here. There's house and there's furniture. The market rental value of the house is 18,000. Now, something we did not discuss last week is this issue of 2% that he contributes. There's something that is known as nominal rent. It applies in a case whereby you are housed by the employer, but the employer is charging you for that house that he has provided. But the amount that the employer is charging is really not equal to the value of that house. Like imagine you are given a house worth 40,000 shillings a month, and the employer is charging you 5,000 for staying in that house. What would happen is we compute housing benefit as we demonstrated, but we make a deduction for that amount which we call the nominal rent. We make a deduction for that nominal rent. So as we see with this note, we are going to compute housing benefit and we make a deduction for that nominal rent that is 2% of the basic pay. Entertainment allowance of 3,000, he was away for 20 days. This is per diem. Not this is per diem. What he's getting is 3,000 shillings per day, and he was away for 20 days. Start thinking, how do we deal with that? Next point, we see that he was reimbursed 120 for medical expenses incurred in the year. The key word with this note is that there is a scheme that covers all employees. That word all carries all the weight. Provided this scheme is covering all employees, the benefit shall not be accessible on the employee. This note, you will not see it in our workings. Reason, this benefit is not taxable. Why is this benefit not taxable? Is because there's a medical scheme that is non-discriminatory. The medical scheme is non-discriminatory. Finally, the gist of doing this question was to allow us deal with this issue of pension. 12,000 is contributing to pension, 12,000 per month to a registered pension scheme. So let us see now how this question will be solved. I hope you are able to capture the details because we'll now come back to this screen. When you're watching the video, you can pause. You can pause at this point and study because now it will not be live. You can pause at this point and study this screen where the question is, and pause at any given point as you watch the video so that you can understand and capture the details correctly. So I hope you're able to pause at this point and capture the details of the question. So I'm going to the solution. Now, here is the solution. As usual, we write the name of the taxpayer, income tax computation for the year of income 2019. We have a column for the income. Now, the first thing is the basic salary. Look at that. Basic salary, it was 150 per month. We multiply 150 by times 12, which would give us 1.8 million shillings. 1.8 million shillings. Next is excess per diem. If he's getting a per diem of 3,000, the excess is the amount that is above 2,000 shillings per day, in excess of 1,000, and is getting it for 20 days. So the excess per diem is actually 20 multiplied by 1,000, which is 20,000 shillings. Can you see 20,000 shillings over there? All right. Next thing is furniture. Is enjoying furniture for 200. The value of the furniture is 200,000. 12% of this will give us 24,000. Up to that point, I believe you are tracking very well. You are following very well. Furniture, 12% of 200,000, and that is the answer we get. Next is we have now the employment income, which gives us 1844. We have to compute the total of the basic pay plus anything else to get this 1844 because we are just about to compute housing benefit. Housing benefit has to be computed as the last benefit because it depends on the total of everything else. Now look at this. Housing benefit, this is how we compute. We are told that the market value of the house is 18,000, and that's why we are multiplying 18,000 times 12, or what? Or we take 15% of 1844. It is this 1844. So we compare the two answers, and the higher of these two would actually be 276. You can compute, and you see that 15% will give us a higher value, which is 276. Now, after we get this higher of the two values, 276, we now do the comparison. We compare what? We compare, look, we have done the comparison. We have already done the comparison. So what follows next is this. We less the nominal rent. The nominal rent, you are told, is 2% of the basic salary. 2% of the basic salary, so it's 2% of 1.8 million. And the final result will be 240,600. 240,600. Please don't make a mistake of calculating the value here, which is around, I don't know, 216,000. Is it 216,000? And then you compare that value with 240. The comparison is done at this stage. At this stage, you compare. Then after you have compared and picked the higher, that's when you less the nominal rent. We call it nominal rent. Okay, I talked about that. So we get summation 1844 plus 240,600. Total benefits is 2084,600. 2084,600. Hope it is clear up to that point. 2084, the total benefits. Now, if we were dealing with this at the point where we had arrived last week, we'll be computing tax at this point. But there's that pension thing. So we talk about allowable deductions, And allowable deductions, now we are going to see the pension deduction. We said it's 30% of the pensionable pay. Look here. 30% of 2084, or the actual contribution. That employee in the last note you are being told that is contributing 12,000 a month. So it's 12,000 multiplied by 12. Then there is a limit. He cannot exceed CDT's limit. CDT in full is Commissioner Domestic Taxes. Commissioner Domestic Taxes. And that CDT's limit is 240. So comparing these three amounts, we are comparing the three amounts. Remember, for this deduction, we consider the lesser of. The lesser of. We are going to compare three values, the three values over here, and we take the least. And the lowest of these values is 12 times 12,000 multiplied by 12, which is 144,000. So it is 144,000 that we are going to less from 2084. See what the result will be. The result will be 194600. From 2084, we less this deduction of 144,000. We arrive at our taxable income of 1940. With 1940, go back to our tax rates. And remember, I showed you a trick last week. Employ that trick that I showed you last week. Compute the gross tax. After computing the gross tax, remember to less personal relief. After you have lessed the personal relief, then you are going to less pay as you earn. You less pay as you earn, and that will give you the net tax. All right. So that is the first bit. That is the first bit we need.